Hello, athletes. Welcome and thank you for tuning into the Coach Katie Danger podcast, recorded live from Omaha, Nebraska. I'm your host, Coach Katie Danger, U.S. Army veteran, fitness coach, and founder of Red H Nutrition. Here's a fact for you. 99% of us are not elite athletes. We're individuals from all backgrounds, juggling life's priorities, including jobs, our families, their needs, and trying to find time to take care of ourselves. Every single week when you tune in, I'll be discussing clear, concise, and actionable strategies you can use to get the most from your fitness, nutrition, and mindset so you can optimize your life without compromising your time. So athletes, settle in and get comfortable. I'm here to educate, inspire, empower, and entertain you to help you enjoy the unique fitness journey that you are on. Hey athletes, welcome to episode number 73 of the Coach Katie Danger podcast. And we're heading into the dog days of summer. It's about mid-July right now, and I hope things are going well for you. I know that if you're a parent, you got school on your mind because, so my birthday was on July 5th. And as a kid going through school, I always remember once July 5th hit and then anything after, I was like, oh shit, like school starts really soon. You know, the summer is like kind of over. So I feel like we're on the downhill slide when it comes to school starting. Just make the most of your summer. Make the most of these warm days. I want to tell you a story about the reason this podcast exists today. And it all started because of my love for sauna. So if you've listened to the podcast for a few episodes, you know that I go to sauna. I go to the infrared sauna. It's got heat. It's got light therapy. I go to it 6 times a week. And I've been doing that since the beginning, actually the end of May. 6 times a week I've been doing that. I sit in a sauna. I go to Perspire Sauna Studio. It's a franchise location here in Omaha. I've actually sat down with the owners and we discussed the technology. So if you're interested in more of that, you can certainly look back probably about like 3 or 4 episodes. But I don't want to digress anymore. When I'm in the sauna, I sweat. Like it's 150 plus degrees in there. And I sit in there for between 40 and 50 minutes every session. So I'm sweating, right? And as an athlete, I mean, it doesn't take very long to learn in your athletic journey, you know, no matter how competitive or whatever point you're at. You know that when you sweat, you lose things out of your sweat. Like the liquid that comes out of our body has vitamins and minerals in it, and when we sweat, so we're always told like you need to drink water, you need to rehydrate because we don't want to experience dehydration, muscle cramps, things like that. So electrolytes always come up, and they actually, you know, they sell electrolytes in the sauna studio, and there's all these different brands, and I just got really confused, like how much of electrolytes do I need? Like how much sodium, how much potassium? I mean, there are guidelines and recommendations, both by the, you know, American Diabetic Association, American Heart Association, Center for Disease Control, Food and Drug Administration, USDA. All these people are recommending certain intakes of potassium and sodium. But as we have experienced, some of these professional organizations are still a little out of touch with current research. So I came across a few brands and I like trying new things. I like seeing how certain products make me feel better, worse, same, you know, whatever. And I tell you what, there are so many competitors and brands in the electrolyte replenishment space. It can be a little overwhelming. So hopefully this episode and this dialogue that we share will clear some things up for you, give you an opportunity to learn more about what electrolytes are, and then try a few, you know, see how they work for you. The really tough part about this podcast is I had to figure out a way to sift and sort through the research because all of it is, I mean, there is like no one piece of research out there that tells you this is how much sodium you need. This is how much potassium you need. There's just nothing out there. Even in my precision nutrition certification guidelines, when they're talking about dehydration and recommendations for hydration, which I have also done a podcast for, what they say is like, you know, certain amount of cups per, like you need a cup per hour of intense exercise with water. And they're like, oh, just throw a splash of electrolytes in there. They don't say what electrolytes. They just say throw electrolytes in there. Like, well, how many? Like, what does that even mean? And I just got really frustrated because it feels like there's nothing out there. So I hope that I can clear some things up for you here. And I just decided to try 3 of the most popular electrolyte beverages on the market. I've got the 3 powders sitting in front of me here today. If you hear that, that's the shake of the powder bag. And I tested them. I also think it's really important to know that these products, 2 of them that I have claim to solve a problem a certain way. And then one of them that I introduce actually kind of disrupts the whole market space and takes a different research stance on the amount of a certain electrolyte we need. So we're going to get into a little bit of science here, but at the same time, it's all pretty easy to understand. Here's the three brands that I'm going to talk about today and why they chose a specific formulation that they did. Hold on, I got to pull something up here. All right. So first, I want to talk about what electrolytes are, because if you don't know what electrolytes are, all of this is just as clear as mud, right? Electrolytes, they are minerals or salts with an electrical charge. They are chemicals that conduct electricity when they're dissolved in water. So specifically, I like to think of the cell. Like, let's just pretend my hand right here is a cell. And if you're listening to this on a podcast stream, you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm basically holding my hands up in a circle. So I've got a circle, and this is our cell, because this is what we always see in our science books. Our cell is a circle. And then we have stuff that's outside of the cell. So we have extracellular components, extracellular fluid. And then we have things inside of the cell. So we have in the cell, intracellular fluid and components. And you know, if you've taken a basic biology course, there's the nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, all these little organelles, mitochondria, they're all in the cell. But outside the cell, a lot of stuff goes on too, because we got to figure out a way to move water in and out of the cell to make sure we maintain that osmotic polarity. That's a fancy word for you, osmotic polarity. We essentially want to maintain the electrical charge, right? We don't want an imbalance there, because that's where things like muscle spasms, heart issues, hypertension, hypotension, all those things can come into play. So we want to avoid that. Electrolytes play many, many vital roles in the body. And the main function depends on which type of mineral it actually is. We've got 5 really that we concern ourselves with. 2 that are the most important, but the 5 that we're concerned about are calcium, potassium, magnesium, sodium, and chloride. Calcium, potassium, magnesium, sodium, and chloride. Calcium has to do with nerve signaling, cell division, and blood clotting. It also helps with bone formation and teeth. We know that. Potassium is the main component of the intracellular fluid. So in our cells, potassium makes up 98% of the intracellular fluid. It regulates heart contractions and it helps with muscle functions, keeps blood pressure stable. Magnesium, it helps with muscle contractions, proper heart rhythm, nerve function. It can actually help reduce anxiety as well. There's lots of proponents of magnesium out there. There's lots of magnesium in stress relief brands as well, in supplementation. Sodium. We'd like to think of sodium as salt, but it's more than that. So sodium helps maintain extracellular fluid balance. So the water and volume outside of the cell, it helps with muscle contractions and nerve signaling. So as you can see, because these are all electrical charged minerals, they do have a large role in the actual functioning of our muscle contraction. And then there's chloride. Chloride helps maintain the fluid balance. So we've got these 5 vital minerals, and a lot of functions of our body depend on how much of these minerals we actually have. So our body cells rely on the movement of these electrolytes. And according to the American Chemical Society, yes, the American Chemical Society, they state that our cells would shrivel up and die, or they would burst from being too full if we did not have the proper balance of electrolytes. And then this always brings me back to, I remember reading this news article, and I'm going to misquote it a little bit in terms of location. I believe it was in California, and it was for a radio show, had a contest when the Nintendo Wii came out. So the Nintendo Wii came out in like 05, 06, like mid 2000s. And what they had to do is they had to drink a bunch of water, and then they had to hold their pee. And the person who held their urine the longest and did not go to the bathroom, they would win. They would win a Wii. So hold your Wii for a Wii. Very clever, right? Well, I believe it was a woman, and this woman would have won. However, she ended up dying because she was overhydrated and her body just got too toxic. So, long story short, we need good balance of electrolytes and we need hydration to live and survive. Do not overdrink, do not underdrink. So, hypohydration and dehydration are very real things. Usually they don't happen. Like if you're a generally healthy person, if you're not sick, if you're not an athlete who's been working out for hours in the hot Sahara Desert, you're probably going to be okay just with drinking water and then the foods that you eat. So the foods that we eat also have these electrolytes in them. Bananas, obviously a good source of potassium, vegetables, other fruits, and then a lot of processed foods that we eat have plenty of sodium in them. Now, here's where the research stops. Like there is just no specific statement on how much of each, like in actual, like very clear peer-reviewed double-blind placebo-controlled studies that tell us how many of these electrolytes we need. But I was able to sift and sort through the information enough to know that sodium and potassium are the 2 main electrolytes that you need to concern yourself with. So moving forward in this podcast, we're going to be talking about potassium and sodium almost exclusively. Okay, so now I want to get into the 3 brands that I tried. And I've been using all 3 of these extensively. Now, most of them are created equally. So I have Liquid IV. Liquid IV is a brand, and Hydrant. And Liquid IV and Hydrant are almost like they're the same. They're the same in what they claim to do. And what they claim to do is transport hydration in the body faster. They are saying you've got to get hydrated faster than just drinking water alone. And they do that specifically. Liquid IV, what they do is they have this cellular transport technology. CTT is what they claim. It's on the bag. I mean, it looks like it's a registered trademark. So it seems like it's pretty real, right? They got some science behind it. So here's what they claim. This is from their website. Cellular transport technology is a breakthrough delivery system, and it's used in all their products. And it's designed to enhance the rapid absorption of water and other key ingredients to the bloodstream. Typically, when you drink fluids, they pass through the entire digestive system, and you can lose water before it actually is absorbed by the body. Okay, so we're drinking water, but as it's got to make its way through the digestive system, we actually don't get it into our cells where we need it to go. So with cellular transport technology, the precise ratio of sodium, glucose, potassium, it creates an osmotic force in our body that allows water to be delivered to the bloodstream earlier on in the digestive system. So when you put the sodium, the potassium, and the glucose, mix it in water, and you put that all together, that's the cellular transport technology. It's an expedited water delivery system in the body, and they claim that it will make you feel better faster. So, like, what do you mean feel better? Okay, let me be honest. The first time I ever tried Liquid IV, it's because I had a hangover. It was a few days after my birthday. I went to a friend. We hung out at the pool till like 1 a.m. I had like 3 beers, but I don't hold my alcohol well. So I woke up the next morning. I had your typical dehydration hangover symptoms. I felt parched. I was tired. I was sluggish. And like you just feel dry, right? I don't know how else to explain it. You just feel dry. So I actually took one of these from my friend Jen. She let me have one, and I felt better pretty quickly. It was probably within like 20 minutes after I drank this that I felt better. So it was just one little packet I put in. But here's the precise ratio that Liquid IV uses. And then I'm going to tell you about Hydrant, which is a similar comparable product, but the ratios are a little bit different. And then they don't have the patented trademark of cellular transport technology. So Liquid IV. Now, like I mentioned, they claim that the sodium, potassium, and glucose balance is what makes it all work together. And that's where the science comes from. So they got 500 milligrams of sodium per packet, 500 milligrams of sodium, 11 grams of glucose, and then potassium is 380 milligrams. So that is supposedly the precise ratio of sodium, potassium, and glucose to get into your bloodstream quicker, get into your digestive tract quicker, so then it can be absorbed sooner by the cells and you feel better faster. So that is Liquid IV, and I actually personally really like the flavors of them. Now let's just go ahead and transition into Hydrant. Hey, I know and you know that I talk a lot about using supplements on your fitness journey and reaching your full potential. How I believe they're integral pieces of the puzzle to reaching your best self and best fitness results. But do you know how supplements fit into your plan? Do you know what to take for your goals and how much of a supplement you should take? If you've ever had any of those questions and you want to know how supplements can work for you and your goals, go to yourfitnesssupplements.com and take the free 3-point personalized supplement assessment. And with just a few questions, you'll have a complete personalized supplement recommendation in less than 60 seconds. You'll know more about how supplements fit into your fitness goals, what's safe, and what's effective and perfect for you. So type in yourfitnesssupplements.com in your internet browser, take the free assessment, and get on the fast track to your best fitness results. So Hydrant also claims to be a rapid hydration mix. They do not have any special patented technology, just that you're going to feel better faster as well. Now the ratios are a little bit different. And when I was looking at this and comparing, it's almost half of what Liquid IV is. So Liquid IV had 500 milligrams of sodium, 380 milligrams of potassium, and then 11 grams of glucose. Hydrant has sodium is 260 milligrams, so about half of 500, right? They've got 6 grams of glucose, which is about half of 11. And then for the potassium, they have 200 milligrams. So that's like a little bit more than half of that's 380. So as you can see, it's not as, I guess, you don't know what's precise. I mean, like Liquid IV has their science behind it. It's not that I don't believe them. It's just why did Hydrant decide to go lower on that scale? Is that just because that ratio and formula is truly patented. I will tell you, I have been using Hydrant longer. They're the first ones I discovered. It was a random purchase buy in my Instagram feed. I really liked it. I think Liquid IV tastes better. And because of the science that Liquid IV has on their webpage, I tend to find it a little bit more trustworthy and more beneficial. Could be mind over matter. I don't know. What I would suggest, if you're trying to determine between like, okay, do I have a Hydrant or a Liquid IV? Try to find the one that tastes the best, because ultimately I really think that these two ratios are they're so small difference in comparison. But, if you want the science and you like it, go with Liquid IV. I really like the taste. I think it tastes a lot better. Both of these brands use mined salt. They're using sea salt. It's not just like your typical table salt. Now, let's get to the fun one. And this is Element. Okay, I really like Element. And I looked at this first and I was like, has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, has 200 milligrams of potassium. Like, when we talk about typical research and information about sodium, like, we're supposed to be on low sodium diets, or like sodium is bad. Sodium makes you bloat. Sodium, salt is bad. New research is always fascinating to me. And I also love brands that like to go out, take research, turn it upside down and say, no, quit thinking about things this way. Think about it this way instead. So here's what Element is all about. Element was founded by Robb Wolf. If you're unfamiliar with Robb Wolf, he was a pioneer in the paleo diet movement before anybody even knew what paleo diet meant. I read about him years ago when I got into CrossFit and the whole eat meats, nuts, seeds, little starch, when that whole thing came about. So Robb Wolf is the founder of Element. He is also a proponent of the keto and keto-ish lifestyle. So as far as the science is concerned, there's a really good video that they have on Element's website. It's drinklmnt.com. You can read it or you can watch it. It's only like 4 minutes. It's Robb Wolf himself talking. And here's what the website says about Element. They say more salt, not less salt, especially if you're an athlete. So while we are generally told to reduce our sodium intake, particularly as it pertains to cardiovascular health, this advice is proven to be largely ineffective in mitigating health issues like hypertension or high blood pressure. So the position is taken by the FDA, the CDC, and the American Heart Association. It recommends that Americans consume less than 2.3 milligrams of sodium per day. That would be 2.3 grams. And an ideal range would be 1.5 grams per day. Well, one of these Element packets has 1,000 milligrams itself. So that's like, oh my God, one of these packets per day is essentially what you would need, right? Well, however, so here's where fun science comes in. They say, however, there's broad-ranging population-level research that suggests that sodium intakes at the levels that are routinely suggested, so that 2.3 milligrams a day with ideal range being about 1.5 milligrams, they actually say that it's more dangerous to be on the lower end of it than it is to be on the higher end of it. In 2011, there was a study published in the Journal of American Medical Association. It looked at sodium intake at cardiovascular events like stroke and heart attack. And it paints a completely different picture of where sodium comes into the equation and actually how the research is confounding in terms of what we've been told and what we're finding. This study shows that the likelihood of health problems was quite high in individuals who were consuming less than 2 grams of sodium per day. And in fact, found that people had the lowest rate of cardiovascular events when their sodium intake was about 5 grams per day. So that's 5,000 milligrams. 1,000 milligrams equals 1 gram. I'm going to use those interchangeably, and hopefully that doesn't confuse any of you. So that is more, 5 grams, 5,000 milligrams, that is more than double the ideal range of 1.5 to 2.3 per day of sodium of what current research is telling us. So what's really interesting about this is there's like this U-shaped curve, and it shows, the low end, which is around the 2 grams, and it shows the high end of 12 grams. And you can see a sweet spot of 8 grams of sodium per day has as the same amount of events as having a low sodium intake of 2 grams. So like 2 grams and 8 grams, the low end and the high end, that's where the most problems arise. And I misspoke. The sweet spot is actually between 4 and 6, maybe even upwards of 7 if you're an athlete, because we're going to get into a little bit more research that Element has on their website. People who consumed, there was another study published in the Journal of Preventive Medicine, and it found that sodium restriction was ineffective in hypertensive patients, and that consuming less than 2.5 grams a day of sodium, they actually had higher blood pressure. So these people who have been recommended to have less sodium in their diets actually had worse blood pressure readings than people who were on the upward ends of 4 to 5 grams of sodium intake. So as you can see, the research that's out there and what we're being told, they're two different things. And I was so impressed with Element and their website and the research that they cited, because I, like probably most of you out there, was like, wow, that, like, when I saw this, I was like, 1,000 milligrams of sodium a packet? Like, aren't we supposed to keep sodium low, right? No, my friends. We should be having a lot more sodium in our diet. And not just like table salt, right? Like, we're talking about real salt, real mined sea salt, the good stuff for you. We don't need more sugar. We do not need more sugar. What we need is more salt. And I think at least also what Element and what Liquid IV and Hydrant, what they're arguing is that the salt intake that people are getting, the reason salt gets such a bad rap is not because salt itself is negative, but because we eat so many processed foods. Like if you go to McDonald's, oh my God, have you ever had binged on McDonald's? Like you've had it. Okay, let me tell you a story. When I was in college, I'd go out, I'd drink like an idiot, but hey, I was 21. And then you immediately go and you get McDonald's. So not only have I drank alcohol and dehydrated myself, but then I go to McDonald's and I get all this processed fat and I get all this processed food with a lot of sodium in it. I'm just really surprised that I am the person I am today and I hadn't completely waste away. I certainly wish some of these packets like Liquid IV were available back then, but what we did is we just went and got a Gatorade or something. It took forever to recover from a hangover. But the point is, what I was getting at is it's the processed food is where the salt intake gets such a bad rap. So salt is not the enemy. We need less sugar. Sugar is like the genesis of degenerative diseases and lifestyle diseases. So salt, we need more salt. You can get it in a precise ratio that you can get in Liquid IV, or you can look at something like Element, LMNT, and you can really improve the way your body functions. Talking about better muscular contractions during exercise, so less muscle cramps, better hydration in general. If your body is hydrated, you can do more. The metabolic processes, ATP, breakdown and regeneration, the transport of vitamins and nutrients to your body during exercise, nerve signaling, all of that matters, and hydration is very important. So the last thing that I wanted to say when it comes to Element was the final journal article that they cited, and it was just a sense of how much sodium and electrolytes active populations need. So active, I mean like you and I. I'm not talking about, somebody who sits on a couch all day. I'm talking about you and me. We exercise, we do stuff. And if you live in a hot climate right now, because it's July, salt intake is going to be very, very important. So we don't want to limit it. We want to get it from a good source though. So here's what this Journal of Sports Science states. It says vigorous exercise in warm and hot weather, it induces sweat production. We know this, right? And our sweat contains water and electrolytes. When our daily water losses and sodium losses becomes great, it produces negative effects in our workouts, like I just said. Now, it's worth noting that this particular study shows that we should be replacing our salt, specifically our salt, at 3.5 to 7 grams per exercise activity. And you're probably asking, okay, but if you do have a lot of salt, because we just said sodium is a component of the extracellular fluid. And to get that osmotic balance, water moving in and out of the cell, we do have to have potassium as well. So Element is very smart. They included 200 milligrams of potassium in their product as well. I mean, there are so many studies out there that are outdated. And I just love reading about new research. And I didn't know, I had no idea that after I dove into just electrolyte balance and replenishment, I had no idea that when I started going to sauna, that it was going to lead me down this path of learning more about electrolytes, but it's fascinating. I love learning new things. And it's also important to note that people who follow a paleo or low carb ketogenic diet, we're not going to have as many processed foods in our diet as your typical standard American diet would. And most of the salt, like I mentioned before, most of the salt that's negative and where it comes from is from the standard American diet and people living off fast food, living off pizza. If you've had a binge on pizza before, if you've had too much fast food, it leaves you feeling thirsty all the time, and then you just feel bloated and gross. So we've all been there before. I thought all this was fascinating, and I wanted to share it with you. Now, what would I recommend? Okay, so as I mentioned, Liquid IV and Hydrant want to hydrate you faster. It's all about getting water into the body faster rather than going through the whole digestive tract and process and only getting a minimal component of what you're actually drinking. Element, on the other hand, wants to take sodium research and say, hey, our current recommendations are wrong, and here's why. So what would I suggest? Okay, what I do when I go to the sauna, I've been experimenting with both things because I don't really eat a high processed diet. So I'm thinking like, well, maybe I do need more sodium. And now that I'm becoming more active and a triathlete, maybe I need more sodium. So I'm experimenting, I'm testing things out. But what I would recommend very solidly, very conclusively, based on what I know, is that you should at least take one of these rehydration packets, whether it's Liquid IV, whether it's Hydrant or Element. You should be taking them with your workouts or at very least post-workout, because you've got to replenish what you've lost through sweat. And even if you're like, hey, well, what if I don't work out? Do I have to replenish sweat? Did you know that just being a normal human being through respiration and just through sitting here and also talking, which I'm doing right now, we can lose up to 4% of our body weight a day in water alone just from those activities. So you don't have to even do anything at all. You can just be talking and breathing and existing, and you are losing significant water and electrolytes through normal bodily processes outside of your activity. Okay, so that is the long and short of electrolytes, what they do for your body, some of the brands that I recommend. You can get Element on Amazon. You can get Element at their website. Liquid IV, I have actually seen it in Costco now. You can get bags of 32, I think. Oh, what is this bag I got here? Okay, so there's 30 serving bags. You can go online to liquidiv.com. And then Hydrant, they're available on Amazon as well. So you can try any of these. There's different flavors. All of them are flavored with stevia. And I will tell you, I am very sensitive to stevia. I generally very much dislike stevia as a sweetener. The great thing is, I don't know if it's the salt, I don't know if it's the potassium, I don't know if it's the citric acid in it, but I don't really taste the stevia at all. Like, that is not what I taste. I taste the salt, I feel the salt. And the funny thing is, when you're drinking, like, it doesn't like quench your thirst. You just want to keep drinking. So I can go through 32 ounces of water with one of these salt packs in it really, really quickly. So I'm going to use them. I'm an exerciser. I like to be active. It's July. I go to the sauna. You need electrolyte balance in your life, not only because there's some science behind it and hydration is important, but if you really want to take care of your body and promote the balance and have muscle contraction, your brain needs it, your nerve signaling needs it. Get electrolytes in your body. If you are working out, make sure you're having some sort of electrolyte balance every single time you work out, during your workout and after your workout. Okay, so that is electrolytes. Now you know what electrolytes are. Now you know a little bit about the research of some of these brands. I talked about Element, I talked about Liquid IV, and I talked about Hydrant. And I've tried them. I've tried all three of these. I've tried other brands before, but that was a long time ago, so I didn't have the bags left anymore to show you or to explain to you. But I would highly recommend it. I would not discount electrolytes at all. In fact, I would also encourage you to go to Liquid IV's website, go to Element's website, read what they have. I think you'll be really, really impressed with what they share. And then what you'll see, how modern, indoctrinated institutional research is not really leading us down the right path anymore. So step outside your comfort zone, get some more salt in your diet, because research is pointing to we need more salt, not less salt. If you guys have any questions on that, you can send me an email, katie@coachkatiedanger.com. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you with what I always do. Believe in yourself. Don't ever quit. Trust the process. You got this. You guys, athletes, this is Coach Katie D with episode number 73. We'll talk to you again next week. Over and out.
This is the podcastfactory.com.